Man. All right, welcome to the Carl Jackson Show podcast. You're watching this. This is the video of the cargo ship hitting the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore and absolutely collapsing the bridge. Obviously, this was the major story yesterday. Sadly, it still is a story, and sadly, it still is a story and will continue to be a story, although I suspect the mainstream media will keep it out of the headlines as long as they possibly can. I'll tell you why in just a sec. Unfortunately, it is a recovery mission for at least 6 construction workers that apparently lost their lives and are presumed dead. Many of whom, or at least half of whom, were from different countries. I don't know if that means they were legal immigrants. I don't know if they were just from different countries and recently became legal immigrants or were legal immigrants all along. But I found that fascinating. Also, the structure of that bridge, for those of you that don't know, there's been a lot of conspiracy theory out there, and I am going to give you some of the information that's out there that people are talking about. Because, let's face it, we don't trust federal government under Joe Biden. We don't trust the DOJ. We don't, or anyone associated, FBI, CIA. I don't trust the EPA. I don't trust the White House. I don't trust the federal government. And sadly, I don't believe I'm the only one. After the response that we saw with COVID, as I mentioned in an earlier podcast, the overreaction to J6 protesters for political purposes in order to frame this narrative that Donald Trump and his supporters are an existential threat to democracy, which we don't live in, by the way. But that's the way the left frames it. I just don't trust them because we've seen how Joe Biden and the Democrat Party is willing to weaponize the federal government in order to attack fellow Americans. So I don't trust them one iota. But there could be simple explanations to this crash. It could be a simple malfunction. It could be a man-made error, which is probably most likely. But I do want to share with you some of the information that is circulating out there so that you can make up your own mind. Here's just a brief synopsis from the Daily Wire. Again, 6 construction workers were filling potholes on the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which is the bridge that you just saw collapse, when the container ship rammed into one of its supports and are presumed dead. I was talking about the structure of the bridge because some people are saying, wow, how could a boat like that destroy a structure like that? I'm like, easy. I mean, the thing is over water, for God's sakes. Have you, Gabe, what's your feeling? Have you ever driven over a bridge that's suspended over water like that? And if so, how does it make you feel? Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not trying to admit that I'm a little scaredy cat here on air, but I kind of am. All right, so I used to, in an occasion, still do when we head to the beach or something. But I can tell you that I used to weekly participate on our local Fox News station, do debates. Against liberals on their station. And when I was driving from the station, I used to return on one of our highways out here known as 417. And I would go over the St. Johns River. And it's a suspended bridge. I mean, it seems solid, concrete, all that kind of stuff. But I know it has, what do you call the things underneath the poles or, man, I forget what they're called. But they have the large columns underneath, right, as you go. I understand that those exist, but when you're driving over it, all you see is this just vast expanse of water, and you feel like you're suspended in air. I am not going to lie to you. I don't even know what the speed limit was or is over that bridge, but I can tell you this: I would fly. I would fly because I just didn't want that. I would always think, man, like, what if this collapsed? I remember when I was younger watching, grew up in Los Angeles and I experienced earthquakes like any of you that may have grown up out there. And I remember the San Francisco Bridge. You guys may remember that one of the big one or one of the big ones hit out there, and that thing kind of just concaved and all that. Oh my goodness. So I remember watching those videos. So it's just a sick feeling. All right. So I don't have the best feeling when it comes to bridges in the first place. And there's a lot of people out there thinking, how can that ship do that to that bridge? And it's pretty easy. I mean, that ship, I don't remember. I read it somewhere on Breitbart, but I don't remember the exact weight. But apparently, that ship was carrying half of the load that it could carry. Let me see. Is this it? It was carrying half of the load that it could carry, and the load that it was carrying was absolutely unbelievable. For whatever reason, I cannot find it right now, but I'm telling you that load was so heavy. Let me see if I really want to find this because I think those numbers are important. I mean, let me just put it. The numbers that boat was so heavy, it made me wonder how could something that heavy even float on water. So there isn't a man-made bridge that exists that could have withstood the impact of that cargo ship. All right. So that's what you need to know. The crew of the people that were working, they were working in the middle of the bridge when the ship struck, causing the bridge to collapse. Again, those bodies, 6 people have not been recovered. Jeffrey Pritzker, I think that's the brother, I'm not sure, of the Governor Pritzker of Pennsylvania, Executive Vice President of Bronner, and I could be totally wrong on that. I know he has a brother somewhere in industry. I could be totally wrong, so let me just not say that. I don't know if they're related or not. Told NBC News that the 6 individuals who were not named are presumed to have died in the accident. Pritzker said this was so completely unforeseen. We don't know what else to say. We take such great pride in safety, and we have cones and signs and lights and barriers, flaggers. Jesus Campos, who has worked on the bridge for the company, said that he knew some of the members of the crew, and he said that they were on a break sitting in their trucks when the ship hit. Perhaps that explains. I'm like, man, how come they didn't see it? And I don't want to blame the victims. I'm not trying to do that. But I just wondered if there was any way that they would be able to assess, like, oh my God, this thing is not going to stop, or was it, did boats come so close to the bridge all the time and never hit that they just didn't think anything of it? He says, Jesus Campos, I know that a month ago I was there, and I know what it feels like when the trailers pass, close quote. He said, imagine knowing that it's falling. It is so hard. One would not know what to do. Investigators have said that all initial signs point to the crash as an accident, and that there is not any proof that terrorism was involved. The ship issued a Mayday warning just shortly before the crash. That allowed officials to stop traffic from crossing onto the bridge before it struck. So we're thankful for that. Yesterday, the chief, James Wallace, said 2 people were rescued from the water. One was unharmed. The second was rushed to the hospital. You have officials across the U.S. offering to help out, including Joe Biden, who said, listen, we'll pay for this right away. Federal government money. I mean, what does he care about money? He doesn't know where money comes from. So I would assume, I'm not sure. Maybe that is something. I don't know. I'm not trying to be, I know this is all, I'm just not sure that would normally happen. Maybe it would happen. Maybe that emergency money comes down for a bridge like that. I had no idea that was a federal bridge. I'm not sure how that works, but anyway. Also, Governor Ron DeSantis said that he directed the Florida Division of Emergency Management to, quote, offer assistance to the state of Maryland if needed. Following the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, close quote. So people are offering to help out. And to some degree, I understand why. And by the way, I'm going to get to the Ronna McDaniel story, the ouster on NBC. At first, I didn't think this was a big story, but sometimes you sit on a story and you're like, maybe this is bigger than I thought. It is bigger than I thought. And I'll explain why. There are major ramifications, I think, with that particular story. It tells you where journalism is. I say this as a person that's not a fan of Ronna McDaniel whatsoever, but I think there's a bigger story at play, and I do want to bring that to you. Also, RFK Jr. RFK Jr. has picked his VP. Oh, if I've not said it already, guys, you are listening to the Carl Jackson Show podcast, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. I've been off for a few days, so I appreciate you tuning in. Gabe, did you like those vocals? Gabe is a singer, and I practice every day before I get on the podcast, so I think pretty soon my voice will be better than his. I'm trying to be as humble. Thank you, Gabe. I didn't say it. You heard it directly from Gabe. So anyway, but I think the RFK Jr. story is fascinating to me. I'll share his VP pick and what I think that means real quick. But getting back to this bridge story, So let me share with you again some of my concerns, some of the conspiracy that's out there. We can all feel safer because Pete Booty is on the job. Oh man, that guy is such a disaster. He shouldn't even show up at press conferences, and he had the audacity to show up after the cargo shipping shortages that we experienced under his watch. All of the problems with flights, airplane flights, since he's been over the Department of Transportation. The guy's a complete and utter disaster, taking off like he's a mother when he and his lover adopted a baby, and then taking a picture as if his lover, his partner, taking a picture as if he's a woman sitting in a bed holding a baby. Give me a freaking break. I can't stand that fool. What a fake, what a fraud, what a phony, what an incompetent. He was a whack mayor from Indiana. And I'm not saying this just to be mean. His town couldn't stand him, even though they voted for him. The residents didn't like him. And you know what he got as a result? He got promoted to the Department of Transportation because he had to bow out because black people wouldn't vote for him as president because he was gay. Simple as that. All right. Now let me. Okay. So let me read you something from Reuters and also from Laura Logan. However you may feel about Laura Logan, I think she is on point on many issues. Some issues I may or may not disagree. But let me find something here real quick. I'm sorry. I'm thumbing through. Let's see. Okay, so let me tell you the importance of this this bridge and this port of entry, if you will. This is from Reuters. I'm not going to read the entire column, but I do want you to know, why did the bridge collapse? The metal truss style bridge has a suspended deck, a design that contributed to its collapse. Engineers say the ship appeared to hit a main concrete pier, which rests on soil underwater and is part of the foundation. All right. So again, and that cargo ship weighed so many tons. It was like, I mean, again, it was like hundreds of thousands of tons. It was insane. It was insane. The thing weighed so much. It was just unbelievable. I couldn't even believe that much weight could float on water. Joe Biden promised to visit Baltimore soon and said he wanted the federal government to pay to rebuild the bridge. I mentioned that. The Transportation Department can award quote unquote quick release emergency relief funds that are typically a few $1,000,000 to replace the bridge. Congress would need to approve funding after the bridge collapsed in 2007 in Minnesota. Congress allocated $250 million for that. How long will it take to rebuild the bridge? This, according to Reuters. Rebuilding could be a lengthy process and will depend on whether any of the remaining structure can be salvaged. It took 5 years to construct the original bridge from 1972 to 1977, but that was way back in 1972 and 1977. With today's technology and with today's bureaucracy, surely it'll take twice as long. What ship hit the Baltimore Bridge? It's called the Dolly. It was leaving Baltimore en route to Colombo, Sri Lanka. None of the 22 crew members were hurt. According to the ship's manager, the registered owner of the Singapore flagship is Grace Ocean Pte Ltd, LSEG. Data show the ship measures 948 feet, 289 meters. It is the length of 3 football fields. Man, placed end to end. It was stacked high with containers, but was capable of carrying twice as much cargo. Safety investigators recovered the ship's black box, which can tell them the vessel's position, speed, heading, radar, bridge audio, and radio communications, as well as alarms. The same ship was involved in an incident in the port of Antwerp, Belgium in 2016 when it hit a quay as it tried to exit the North Sea container terminal. A later inspection in June 2023 carried out in San Antonio, Chile, found the vessel had, quote, propulsion and auxiliary machinery, close quote, deficiencies. This, according to data on the public Equasis website. All right, the Francis Scott Key Bridge. What do we need to know about the bridge that collapsed? Was one of three ways. Listen to this: to cross the Baltimore Harbor, one of three ways, and handle 31,000 cars per day, or 11.3 million vehicles a year. The steel structure is 4 lanes wide and sits 185 feet high. So that's how far those men, unfortunately, fell apparently to their death, or at least it's presumed at this point. It opened in 77, crosses up Patapsco River, where U.S. national anthem author Francis Scott Key wrote the Star Spangled Banner in 1814 after witnessing the British defeat the Battle of Baltimore and the British bombing of Fort McHenry. How will a bridge collapse impact the Baltimore port? All right, this is what I want you to hear. Traffic was suspended at the port after the incident. It is one of the smallest container ports of the northeastern seaboard, handling about a tenth of the volume that passes through the port of New York and New Jersey. So a tenth of the volume that passes through the port of New York and New Jersey. The flow of containers to Baltimore can likely be redistributed to bigger ports, said container shipping experts Lars Jensen. However, there could be major disruptions in shipping cars, shipping coal, and shipping sugar. It is the busiest U.S. port for car shipments, handling at least 750,000 vehicles in 2023. This, according to the data from the Maryland Port Administration. In 2023, the port was the second busiest for coal exports. Okay, now, let me share something else with you. This is from, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it. This is from Laura Logan. This is what she shared on X. You guys may remember Laura Logan. She used to be with CNN, and then she was at Fox. Now she's an independent journalist, having a fallout with them. But she said, multiple intel sources. Okay, so Baltimore Bridge collapse was an absolutely brilliant strategic attack. Now, I understand this falls into conspiracy. I don't know if this is true or not. And frankly, neither do you. But she's quoting apparently from intel sources that she has. And this is the sad thing. The reason why we all are willing, including me, to believe any type of conspiracy, I don't know if it's conspiracy theory, I don't know if it's conspiracy fact, is simply because I no longer trust the federal government, especially under the leadership of Joe Biden. All right, so she says Baltimore Bridge collapse was an absolutely brilliant strategic attack on U.S. critical infrastructure, most likely cyber, and our intel agencies know it. In information warfare terms, they just divided the U.S. along the Mason-Dixon line, exactly like the Civil War. It's the second busiest strategic roadway in the nation for hazardous material, now down for 4 to 5 years, which is how long they say will take to recover. The bridge was built specifically to move hazardous material. That includes fuel, diesel, propane gas, nitrogen, highly flammable materials, chemicals, and oversized cargo that cannot fit in the tunnels. That supply chain is now crippled. So remember, from Reuters, they said they have 3 other ways to get across that body of water. But according to this report from Laura Logan, not necessarily, right, because of the size of the truck, the trucks that are shipping some of these hazardous material. She says, make no mistake, this was an extraordinary attack in terms of planning, timing, and execution. The 2 critical components on that bridge are the 2 load-bearing pylons on each end closest to the shore. They are bigger, thicker, and deeper than anything else. These are the anchor points, and they knew that hitting either one of them would be a fatal wound to the integrity of the bridge. Half a mile of bridge went in the river. Likely, you will have to build a new one. Also caused so much damage to the structural integrity of the bottom concrete part that you cannot see and won't know until they take the wreckage apart. Structural destruction likely absolute. Attack perfectly targeted, she says. They have figured out how to bring us down. As long as you stay away from the teeth of the U.S. military, you can pick the U.S. apart. We are arrogant and ignorant. Lethal combination, she says. Obama said they would fundamentally change America, and they did. We are in a free fall ride on a roller coaster right now. No brakes, just picking up speed. The footage shows the cargo ship never got in the approach lane in the channel. You have to be in the channel before you get into that turn location. Was precise, deliberate, chose a bend in the river where you have to slow down and commit yourself. Once you are committed in that area, there's not enough room to maneuver. Man, you have to be in the channel before you get into that turn. Location was precise, deliberate. Wow. Should have had a harbor pilot to pilot the boat. You're not supposed to traverse any obstacles without the harbor pilot. They chose a full moon so they would have maximum tidal shift, rise and fall, brisk flow in that river on a normal day, and have had a lot of rain recently, so water was already moving along at a good pace. Hit it with enough kinetic energy to knock the load-bearing pylon out from under the highway, which fatally weakens the span, and then 50% of the bridge fell into the water. All these factors, when you look at it, this is how you teach people how to do this type of attack, and there are so few people left in the system who know this. We have a junior varsity team on the field, she says. Tremendous navigational obstruction, huge logistical nightmare to clean this up. Number of dead is tragic, but not the whole measure of the attack. That kind of bridge constantly under repair, always at night because there is so much traffic and they cannot obstruct that during the day. So concern is for repair guys who were on foot out of their vehicles working, who may now be in the water, 48 degrees at most at this time of the year. When you choke off Baltimore, you have cut the main north-south hazardous corridor in half. Now has to go around the city or go somewhere else to move some of that cargo through the tunnel. You may be able to get a permit, but those are slow to get and require an escort system that is expensive and has to be done at night. For every $1,000 that goes into the city, $12 comes from shipping, or $100, I'm sorry, 12 comes from shipping. Wow, 12%. Believe this will cripple the city of Baltimore at a time when they do not have the resources to recover. So it's an interesting take. Again, I don't know if that's conspiracy theory or conspiracy fact. She says that she's reporting from multiple intel sources. And again, I'm not sure exactly what to believe. But it is possible that it was just human error. It is possible that the boat just gave out. But it could be possible that it was a cyber attack, because we've watched the Biden administration. We've watched Chinese balloon traverse across the entire United States. We've watched Russian cyber attacks inside of the United States since Joe Biden has been in office, where they've done absolutely nothing about it. So take what you will from that. All right, now, real quick, moving on. Let's play this Glenn Greenwald video. This is his response, and we may have to just stop it for a split sec, Gabe, because it goes over 3 minutes and 40 seconds. So I'll just stop it halfway, say something real quick, and we'll finish on with that. But I want to talk about this Romney thing real quick, or Ronna Romney McDaniel firing or ouster at NBC. And then just real quick, give my take on the VP pick for RFK Jr., and then we will close it out. So let's go ahead and roll the video, por favor, Mr. Casiano.
Donald Trump, whether they like it or not, is the leading candidate for president in the United States in 2024. And NBC, which claims to be a news outlet, is explicitly apologizing because they hired somebody minimally associated with that campaign, even though they're surrounded by people who came right from the Democratic National Committee in the Biden White House. They see no contradiction in that at all.
Right in, what were your takeaways?
Look, let me deal with the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I think our bosses owe you an apology for putting you in this situation, because I don't know what to believe. She is now a paid contributor by NBC News. So I have no idea whether any answer she gave to you was because she didn't want to mess up her contract. She wants us to believe that she was speaking for the RNC when the RNC was paying for her. So she has credibility issues that she still has to deal with.
Yeah.
Is she speaking for herself, or is she speaking on behalf of who's paying her? Once at the RNC, she did say that, hey, I'm speaking for the party. I get that. That's part of the job. So what about here? I will say this.
How is that not the same for so many of the people that they have employed on their staff? They have on their staff a former Joe Biden and Kamala Harris aide named Simone Sanders. She has her own show on MSNBC on the weekend. She came right working from Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and then got put in MSNBC. Jen Psaki went as the official spokesperson for the Biden White House, whose job was to lie if necessary to defend Joe Biden, to having a show on MSNBC and constantly being on MSNBC, including Meet the Press. They have the former head of the CIA, John Brennan, and a former senior FBI official, the former associate director, Frank Figliuzzi, who's on their airway all the time. These are trained liars of the U.S. security state. And you would never see Chuck Todd ask this question. Well, how do we know? Whether because before they said they were speaking on behalf of the Biden White House or the DNC or the CIA or the FBI.
Let's stop it right here for just a sec here, Gabe. Listen, I don't understand all the fanfare for Chuck Todd. I really don't. The guy is fake as all get out. I mean, there are times where he's aggressive and you're like, wow, good job. And then he just turns into a leftist because he's fake. He tries to pretend like he's a journalist when he's not. He's a lefty. He should just be a commentator. I would respect him a lot more. If he just said, this is what I believe, these are my opinions, I'm left wing, but he tries to pretend like he's fair. He tries to pretend like he's balanced, and he's anything but fair and balanced. He's a left winger, I believe, married to a left winger that's in the political arena, if I'm not mistaken. So good for Glenn Greenwald for calling him out. We all recognize this. Again, they hire people straight from the White House, straight from Democratic campaigns, and they want to sit here and call out Ronna Romney McDaniel. I'm not even a fan of hers, but it goes beyond hypocrisy. I'll tell you what it is. Let's go ahead and wrap up this video, though, Gabe.
What you're seeing here is the liberal ethos that I think is so important to understand. The reason Democrats never objected to the hiring of, obviously, Democratic Party spokespeople, but even the heads of the CIA, the head of the FBI, the head of the NSA, all kinds of former Pentagon officials, is because they don't regard those U.S. security state agencies as menacing or dishonest. They regard those as their benevolent allies. Of course, they see nothing wrong with hiring the CIA director. They consider that person a benign ally. The CIA is who spread Russiagate. The FBI is who spread Russiagate. Tried to put Donald Trump in prison. They love those agencies. There's only one entity, one institution in the eyes of news corporations that are a bridge too far. And that is people who are associated with the Trump-led Republican Party. That's it. That's the only prism through which they understand the world. You can put neocons on NBC, and they do constantly, who lied the country into war, who defended torture and kidnapping people off the streets of Europe and sent them to Syria and Egypt to be tortured, as Nicole Wallace, the former Bush-Cheney White House spokesperson, did, who has a show on MSNBC and is constantly on MSNBC. There is no bridge too far for liberal viewers of NBC and MSNBC News and for their personalities, except for the Republican Party.
Interesting take, and a good take by Glenn Greenwald. I don't agree with everything he said, but anyway, he is obviously good at what he does, and that was an excellent take. And when you consider the fact that he said, listen, these people are allies. See, the CIA, the FBI, they're allies with the left. That should scare the bad crap out of you, all right? So real quick, here's the story. Ronna McDaniel, RNC chairwoman, recently basically replaced as the RNC chair. Trump has got his own guy in there now, and his daughter-in-law Laura Trump is the assistant chair, if I recall correctly. So Ronna McDaniel was hired as a contributor. I don't even think it was a full-time gig, but she would appear on shows as needed, and she would be a paid contributor for NBC. And she was just ousted 4 days, literally just 4 days after becoming a part of their quote unquote team. And you see all these personalities that were bashing her on air. We didn't go through all of the video. That was the main one, Chuck Todd, trying to pretend as if he's credible. The NBC News chairman, Caesar Kunde, made the announcement in a memo to employees that McDaniel was out after multiple on-air hosts lashed out at the company during their news shows. Hat tip to the Daily Wire. Here's what he had to say. There's no doubt that the last several days have been difficult for the news group. After listening to the legitimate concerns of many of you, I have decided that Ronna McDaniel will not be an NBC News contributor, close quote. Difficult for the news group? What are these, babies? What are these freaking children? Is this the Nothing But Children Network? Is that what NBC stands for? You got to be freaking kidding me. That's insane. He went on to say our initial decision was made because of our deep commitment to presenting our audiences with a widely diverse set of viewpoints and experiences, particularly during these consequential times. Condi said that the network was committed to its quote-unquote principle that we must have diverse viewpoints on our programs, close quote. How? When you just fired a moderate Republican. I mean, a moderate Republican, which means that they will, quote, redouble, quote, close quote, their efforts to, quote, seek voices that represent different parts of the political spectrum, close quote. When does that happen on NBC or MSNBC recently? When does that happen? These people exist in the bubble. They don't even know. I think sometimes I'm like, they're just freaking communists. And sometimes I don't even think they know that they're communists. But they are. According to the article, the problems at NBC News created additional problems for McDaniel as creative artist agency. The Hollywood talent agency that negotiated her deal ended its relationship with her as well. They probably told her, hey, if you work with people like this, we're not working with you. Now McDaniel is focused on exploring her legal options following her termination from the network. I hope she sues them blind. I hope she gets so much money from NBC. It's ridiculous. If it's possible, they were literally defaming her on air, and it was all opinion. It was all opinion. These people trying to act all high and mighty and moral. Oh, well, you know, the election in 20, we all know there were tons of anomalies, whether you believe the election was stolen, rigged, or whether it was fair. We all have common sense. We can all agree that there were several anomalies that took place in the 2020 election. We can all agree that it shouldn't take a freaking month to count votes when states like Florida can get it right before 11 p.m. at night. And have way more, millions of more voters than many of these swing states that took forever. We can all agree on that. If you don't, you're just fake. And I really don't care how you feel anyway. But again, just real quick, real important points that Greenwald made and some points that I want to pop off on, if you will. The fact that he said, again, I go back to the CIA and the FBI are allies with the mainstream media. Again, let that sink in. The Department of Justice, the CIA, they're allies with the mainstream media. The mainstream media does not see big government as a threat. Just let that sink in. And the law enforcement arm that has been weaponized against their political opponent, because make no mistake about it, whether it's the DNC, whether it's NBC, whether it's the CIA, whether it's the FBI, they're all arms of the Democrat Party nowadays. The NBC hosts are hypocrites. That's what a lot of people are. Oh, man, they're hypocrites. They're hypocrites. They're contradicting themselves, as Glenn Greenwald said. No, they're not hypocrites. They're leftists. They don't value truth. It's as simple as that. These people are committed leftists before they're journalists. And that's why they were all, you know, getting their little panties in a wad. Frankly, I do think this. I think they're afraid of anyone that can poke holes in their narratives and arguments that will possibly enlighten some of their viewers. You have anyone on there that can poke holes or challenge their narratives, they view them as a threat. And just like Democrats want one party rule, they have to have one voice rule. All right, one party rule in media as well. That's what they have to have. So if you have anyone that's challenging the status quo, they get scared of them. And then you think about this, and many people have, commenting on this. Imagine the power that these fools have. That the inmates are running the asylum at NBC. The inmates are running the asylum. They should be fearful of being fired, but they're not fearful of being fired. You know why they're not fearful of being fired? Because, guys, there's a greater issue at stake here. Leftism, just like I told you, they're leftists before they're journalists. Their boss is probably a leftist. Actually, I shouldn't say probably. He's a leftist before he's their boss. He wants to be cool. He wants to virtue signal. He wants to be down with the same people. Then he better shut his mouth. He better fire Ronna McDaniel. Again, I hope she gets a buttload from them. All right, last thing, I'll close this out real quick. RFK Jr. Actually, I won't have enough time to spend. Let me just get real quick. I won't spend as much time as I wanted to on this for the sake of time. Both Gabe and I have got to get out of here. By the way, subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast: Apple, Google, Spotify, and Rumble, YouTube and Rumble. Please follow me, all things social media at The Carl Jackson Show. Please help out our sponsor, MyPillow.com, Mike Lindell, doing a fabulous job there, creating American products. Mother's Day is coming up. Father's Day is coming up. There may be birthdays coming up. I know you want a good night's rest. MyPillow.com. Promo code Carl. All right. Click on the radio podcast square, enter my name, CARL, or give them a call, 800-858-0263. All right. So RFK Jr. picked Nicole Shanahan as his running mate. She's an independent presidential candidate. RFK Jr. This, according to Epoch Times, picked Nicole Shanahan as his running mate. She's a late-breaking candidate. Ms. Shanahan is only 38 years old. She was formerly married to Google co-founder Sergey Brin. The lawyer, entrepreneur, and investor helped fund and create Mr. Kennedy's $7 million Super Bowl campaign ad that was really cool. The Silicon Valley lawyer said this, or according to RFK, he said this. She shares my indignation about the participation of big tech as a partner in the censorship and their surveillance and the information warfare that our government is currently waging against the American people, close quote, according to Kennedy. And he says, that's why I'm bringing on someone with a deep inside knowledge of how big tech uses AI to manipulate the public. I wanted a partner with strong ideas about how to reverse those dire threats to democracy and our freedoms. I managed to find a technologist at the forefront of AI. He went on to say her age is going to be attractive to millennials and to Generation Z. He says, I want Nicole to be a champion as a growing number of millennials and Gen Z Americans who have lost their faith in their future and lost their pride in our country. He said she can serve as that, that beacon of hope. She's a vice presidential pick again. Ms. Shanahan, in an introduction video played at the event, said she decided to make the move, quote unquote, as an independent now because I've been finding it harder to find the leadership in the White House that presents the issues closest to her heart. She has two political convictions: to serve peace and to help those in poverty. Now, to serve peace, what she means by that is war. She's basically anti-war. She thinks that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is the only anti-war candidate in the race, and she wants to help those in poverty. Apparently, she comes from a background where her mother, where they were broke as a joke. Someone suffered, I can't remember if it was her dad but someone suffered with either drug abuse or alcoholism. But she's also rich as all get out. She can help fund the campaign, and it's definitely needed. They're on a race to get on 50 ballots across the United States. And unfortunately, unless you have a VP pick when it comes to an independent candidate, he couldn't get on some of the ballots. And Nevada, the state of Nevada, is trying to punk him right now and saying, listen, when you get all the signatures here, you didn't have the VP person. Now you need to re-get signatures with the VP person. So they're playing those type of shenanigans. And why? Because honestly, he's making inroads. At first, there was a period of time where RFK Jr. was making inroads against Trump and Joe Biden. But as the persecution against Trump continues with some of these court cases, he's making the most inroads against the Democrat Party. And that's exactly why they want to destroy him. Now, Shanahan is a left winger. All right. And so is RFK Jr. But they're good on the issue of vaccine. Apparently, they're both good when it comes to the issue of surveillance. Obviously, I think RFK Jr. was a big mistake to say that at one point he wanted Aaron Rodgers or was courting the New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers or Jesse the Body Ventura, former Minnesota governor and Navy SEAL. Tulsi Gabbard apparently declined to be a part of the ticket. Andrew Yang apparently declined. According to Epoch Times, other names that were reportedly approached. I don't know if this is confirmed or not, but Senator Rand Paul, Tony Robbins, Mike Rowe, former Republican Senator Scott Brown of Massachusetts. But I would say with any of these guys, you would think that Trump is likely the winner. There's no need to go on. Even Tulsi Gabbard, who's quite frankly, I listen, I love Tulsi Gabbard as a person. I love her strong convictions, but she is a liberal. I don't know why people are so hell-bent on her becoming Trump's VP as if that'll bring the country together. No, it won't. The left is going to be the left. They're little commies, and they'll continue to act like commies regardless. But those are some of the people that have alleged to have turned it down. Shanahan has donated to Buttigieg Carrie, that other lady, what's her name, Williamson, in the race before. She's donated to Biden. She had a challenging childhood. Here it is. Her mother immigrated from China, and her father was, quote unquote, plagued by substance abuse, close quote, and struggled to keep a job. So she's someone that came from poverty, and she says that basically she wants to use her money as a blessing to others. So that's who he wants. And I think she's going to be able to help him financially because he needs it. Apparently, it's going to take approximately $15 million for the effort to get his name on ballots in all 50 states. And this young lady may be able to help him do that. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. And until next time, do not grow weary doing good. God bless you.